Good afternoon, dear participants and also dear panelists. So I would like to welcome you to the first round table of this afternoon. So yesterday, as some of the participants may know, we briefly mentioned about the current status of the Mediterranean and the ongoing efforts. And today, with this roundtable discussion and also the following roundtable discussion, we will be diving a bit more into the current status of the Mediterranean. And the main goal of this today's first roundtable is going to be to take stock of the marine conservation and MPAs in the Mediterranean, and also to identify what are the main barriers and issues in terms of MPAs and especially protected areas of Mediterranean importance regarding their effective management. We will also be tackling some solutions and available tools. And also we will be discussing about the MPA forum and the roadmap. And also we will be calling for new commitments. And we will also mention about a partnership between MedPAN and MedCities. So before we start our roundtable, today we have valuable panelists with us. And I would like to briefly introduce you to our panelists. So starting with Carol Martinez, she is the policy officer of MedPAN. And then we have Asma Kerji, she is the Specially Protected Areas Program Officer of UNEP-MAP Sparak. And then we have Fanny Douer, Head of UNESCO World Heritage Marine Program. And we have Puri Canals, the President of MedPAN. And we have Joseph Canals, the Secretary General of MedCities. And we also have one online participant, panelist. His name is Jorge Alonso Rodriguez, and he will be representing ASPIMS. So I would like to welcome all the panelists and all the participants to this roundtable. Just a little warning, we are going to be a bit restricted with time, so I will kindly be giving warning signs to the panelists. So if you hear this, that means that you have to wrap up your introductions and sessions shortly. So, without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Fanny Douer to do the welcome introduction of this roundtable. So, Fanny.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone, and a warm thank you to the organizers. It's an honor to be here and to share some thoughts with you. So I am currently responsible for 50 marine protected areas across 37 different countries, marine protected areas that are inscribed on UNESCO's World Heritage List for their very special environmental values, whether it's their biodiversity or being special ecosystems. Two of those are located here in the Mediterranean. We have Ibiza. The seagrasses, of course, of Ibiza are exceptionally unique in the world, and also the Scandola Reserve in Corsica. Now, in a very brief nutshell, a few points that I want to share with you. We work every single day, myself, my team, with all those local managers in all those marine protected areas across the globe. One very interesting observation, when you look at a map of the marine protected areas here in the Mediterranean, you see a huge amount of marine protected areas, but they're actually fairly small, all of them. When you look at the southern part of the Mediterranean, there's actually very little marine protected areas. And when we look around the world at various of these marine protected areas inscribed on UNESCO's World Heritage List, one critical component that we look at is the integrity and the connectivity of the ocean in relation to the boundaries that we're going to draw for a particular World Heritage Site. So one crucial aspect that I think from a global perspective immediately comes to mind when you look at a map of the Mediterranean marine protected areas is their size and their location. And there's entire areas that actually do not have any form of protection, at least not if you look at a map of the Mediterranean. So when you look at the, and that's an aspect that we're very much busy with today globally in marine protected areas, when we look at achieving the 30 by 30 target, it is absolutely essential, and I believe very much here in the Mediterranean, with a lot of things are connected, it is essential not to just look at the percentage, but to actually also very much to look at where we're going to designate new marine protected areas. So that's for, when you look at a map, that's the first thing I did when I was invited for this presentation. It's critically important to look where they actually are located. Protecting just 30%, if it isn't the right places in the ocean, it won't do a whole lot of good necessarily. I think, since I only have a few minutes and I'm waiting for the tick on the glass, I think another very important observation that we have worldwide, I'm just back together with my team. We were in Palau, where we have the Rock Island Southern Lagoon, a very beautiful site. But again, and it's over and over again, the same issue in many marine protected areas around the world. If you do not have a sufficient, robust ranger system and system of patrolling that actually makes sure that if this is a multiple use area, that people are going out and have a robust system to actually patrol, monitor, evaluate, and writing out fines with sufficiently high fines behind it, that actually is really a paper park for the bottom line. If people can do whatever in a park, whether they're now boundaries or not, it is a paper park. And I think it's crucially important, especially here in the Mediterranean as well, when new financing comes about, we tend to often look at these very interesting, easy to communicate kind of ways when we develop projects, but we tend to sometimes forget that the very basic things that maybe are not so interesting to communicate, the very basic things of having enough people, enough patrolling, enough IT services to actually see what's happening in a particular area, and for people, the authorities to go out and write out fines if it is necessary. That is the bottom line, really, of what makes the difference between a well-managed marine protected area and a protected area that has boundaries, but is a paper park. So maybe I'll stop there, leave the time for my colleagues.
Perfect timing. Thank you very much, Fanny, for the first welcome words. And then I would like to give the floor to Puri and Asma for the next welcome introduction. You will have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yaprak. So thank you for joining us and for being here. I am Asma Khriji. I'm Program Officer of the Specially Protected Areas Program at the SPARAC being one part and one organization of the Barcelona Convention in the Mediterranean. So it is one of the regional seas conventions at the Mediterranean, and we are working with the different stakeholders, countries, but also with our key partners in the region, such as, and if I can briefly just introduce maybe the session with MedPAN, and maybe our memory is short, so maybe I will only start in 2010, 2012, when we have, and 2012 in particular, where we have started our first MPA forum in the region that gathers MPA managers, but also all the other stakeholders, the private sector, the institutions, the research, and we have developed the first roadmap that set, I think, the path for MPAs. And the Barcelona Convention was inspired by this very first roadmap that was made by the MPA managers and also the other stakeholders. And we have developed in parallel another legal document, which is the roadmap of MPAs for the Barcelona Convention. And then it was adopted, etc., and adapted also. So I think we cannot work alone. I mean, not the legal institutions, not the formal ones, but not also the field. We all need together, we all need to join forces from all the levels, but also from all the thematics and the specialities in order to work for our Mediterranean, and also to work to conserve this heritage and this unique spot in the world, the Mediterranean. And maybe also I was thinking this morning that we are not only protecting our Mediterranean, we are protecting, I think, all the heritage not only for our future generations, not only for our children and our grandchildren, but for our entire species. And when they are threatened, we are threatened because we are directly linked and we cannot live without nature. And nature maybe can live without us, and I'm sure it can. But to protect our species, our human, we should protect nature. So I will also give the floor to Puri for the welcome words.
Thank you, Asma.
Thank you, Asma. And Puri, 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, and thank you for coming. It's very important for us to have people interested in this kind of debates, and thank you to Monaco Explorations for organizing it, and we are very glad to contribute. And this is an example, as Asma say, of a nice collaboration. MedPAN is the network of marine protected areas managers in the Mediterranean, and we started in 2009 with nine managers that create MedPAN. Today we have more than 100 and institutions, and MedPAN is obviously targeting the management. I will have the opportunity to go deeper on this along the session, but it's targeting the management with a very strong cooperative approach, because we cannot manage the marine environment if we don't cooperate. If it's something that the water teaches us, is connectivity. Water connects everything, for good and for bad. If we have some pollution focus here, the pollution will arrive everywhere. But if a species disappears in an area and it's recovered in another, it will also reach this area. So it's up to us to take advantage of this connectivity. And we believe in biomimetics. We are not different of nature. We are part of nature, a crazy part of the nature, but we are nature. So we should operate also from a logical and a cognitive point of view as nature does. And that means connecting. Nature is, the basis of nature is not competitivity. It's not the little focus we do when a species fights with another. This is a small part of the whole picture. The whole picture that provides sustainable and resilient ecosystems is about cooperative relationships. And if you want to have a society that is cooperative and with good relationships, then nature will benefit of this. And if we want to protect those ecosystems in the marine protected areas, we can only do by working together. And this is a nice example, this session today, of this cooperativeness between many of the Mediterranean institutions, that we not only join forces to organize this event. This will not be make a huge difference. This is just an example of a long track, years of cooperating between all of us. And that's what makes the difference. We have people working on the ground, the managers, people developing science knowledge, crucial to inform for the right decisions, and people making policies. And that's what makes this cooperation different, useful, and also a model for other ocean areas in the world, or a model or an example to exchange, because there are also other regions that have very nice examples. So thank you and enjoy the session.
Thank you very much for all the welcome introductions. So now I would like to give the floor back to Asma. She will be presenting about the framework and the tools for marine conservation and biodiversity of the Barcelona Convention. 5 minutes, Asma.
5 minutes.
Yes,
okay.
Thank you.
And also, if I can stand, because I cannot really. Thank you so much, Yaprak. So, and I will be quick. In a nutshell, the Barcelona Convention was established around 40 years ago now, and its legal framework is and its secretariat is the Mediterranean Action Plan. So the UNEP map. It has several protocols. One of them is focused on the specially protected areas and biological diversity, the SPABID protocol. And this protocol was adopted here in Barcelona 30 years ago, around 30 years ago, and it aims on two objectives. The first one is the protection of area of particular importance, such as that we call the SPA, the specially protected areas, but also other specially protected areas of Mediterranean importance that are unique in the Mediterranean, that we call SPAMI. And they have an annex with several criteria. The second level that aims this protocol to achieve is the protection and the conservation of the marine threatened and endangered species but also habitats. And there are also annexes that list the different species that are threatened or whose exploitations should be regulated. And the logical framework for this Barcelona Convention and for this protocol is a strategic document called the SAB-BIO, which is the Strategic Action Program for the conservation of biological diversity and sustainable use and management of marine resources. This document has a 15 years lifespan, and it is more or less it aims to target the priorities and the needs during the 15-year cycle. So it identifies what are the needs, what are the actions, what are the priorities, etc., etc. And lately the first SAB-BIO was developed in 2003, and then it was updated lately in 2021 and adopted finally by the Barcelona COP. And it has started with the interviews and with the questionnaires, but also with meetings with the contracting parties that are the countries, but also the regional partners that are concerned by the marine biodiversity in the Mediterranean. So this SAB-BIO, it has a very long vision towards 2050, and it has like life is good, let's live in harmony with nature, etc., etc. And it has three main goals. The first one is to reduce the threats to biodiversity. The second one, to ensure that the biodiversity we have is at least preserved and maintained. And the third one is to enable all the necessary means and tools in order to conserve and implement what is said in this strategy. So also we have several action plans that are adopted by the countries that focus on particular species, such as the marine turtle, cetaceans, etc. And in relation to our session today, we have a specific post-regional MCPA's marine and coastal protected areas, and also other effective area-based management tools that is meant to help the countries achieve the 30 by 30 targets. So we have here the 30 by 30 targets, but also by 2030 it says that all the areas that needs to have more protection and more preservation, their coverage should be increased. So it has several strategic pillars, such as the governance, the MPA coverage, but also OECM specific pillar on OECM, on management effectiveness, because it's not only about the numbers, and finally all the government and the stakeholder action and support. So another tool is the AGM of the Barcelona, which is a group of experts that support the SPARAC in order to help the countries go through all the challenges that they face through the tools and the means available. And that's it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And also thank you very much for being so efficient with the time as well. So because we have 15 minutes left, and I would like to give the floor to all the panelists. So now I would like to invite Carol from MedPAN to present us the status of the MPAs in the Mediterranean.
Thank you.
5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yaprak. And thank you to Fanny to have so nicely introduced this point, as you mentioned the map. So further to the framework and the ambition for our region to achieve 30% of our marine and coastal ecosystem protected by 2030. Here we are. To date, 8.3% of our Mediterranean Sea is covered by marine protected areas. So we can already sense the room for progress. And in terms of objectives, when you mention, Asma, the enhanced protection, it echoes as well the ambition of the European Union to develop the strict protection with a target of 10%. When it comes to strict protection in our Mediterranean Sea, to date, we are only reaching 0.04%, including the zones with no take, no go, no fishing. So again, we can sense the important room for progress. Fanny, you mentioned as well what can be striking on this map is the divide between the north and the south shore, but as well the east and the west part of the Mediterranean Sea. Indeed, for the time being, almost 98% of the existing marine protected areas are in European waters. So in terms of cooperation, and Puri fairly point this need, there is a lot to do in order to ensure that the marine conservation efforts are representing actually all the different important ecosystems around the Mediterranean Sea. It's important for the representativeness, it's important in terms of connectivity, but it's important as well for the local community, as those ecosystems are providing valuable ecological services. And we immediately think about the small-scale fisheries. We do need healthy marine coastal ecosystem for livelihoods. But beyond the figures, and again, it's a point you already mentioned, Fanny, we have to think about the reality of those marine protected areas. Are they proper park? Are they well managed? Is the management effective? And a few years ago, MedPAN organized a survey. We actually reached out to the MPA managers in order to understand where are they standing. Do they have sufficient needs? Do they have enough staff? Do they have enough fund? Do they have the basic equipment, for instance, to ensure the enforcement, the patrolling? And actually, what was striking is, again, there are important needs to address. The feedback from the ground was highlighting the importance to have enough staff at sea in order to properly take care of these MPAs. The funding, and we will address this later with a second roundtable. Again, there is an important need in terms of funding. And in terms of regulation, the patrolling, there is a lot to do. Sometimes some MPAs don't have a boat to ensure the patrolling. So how can you make sure that your MPA is actually respected in terms of regulation? There is no illegal activities. This is just not possible if you don't have a boat to go and see people at sea. So regarding the effective management, I think that, again, beyond the striking figure of 30 by 30, we have to pay a strong attention to the qualitative dimension of these objectives. And if we read properly the target 3, first there is this ambition of 30%, but then there is all the different components to make sure that the marine conservation efforts can definitely work with the question of representativeness, as I mentioned, the connectivity, the good management, but as well the involvement of the local community, the respect of the rights of the people living at the coast and the rights of the indigenous people. So in terms of taking stock of the situation, yes, we have still a lot to do in the Mediterranean region. But again, and this echoes the ambition as well of the SAT-Bio, we have to do it properly from a qualitative point of view, involving the people. So to do so, a network such as MedPAN is actually valuing, promoting this human dimension, bringing together the MPA managers, bringing around the MPA managers the necessary stakeholders and partners in order to share knowledge, to share experience, and to co-design solutions all together. So I think the fact to have a community of practice embodied in a network is already quite an asset. And later with Esma, we will actually mention and present to you how, as well together, we can support the political willingness, because things have to be done on site, but without political leadership, it will be very tricky to achieve all these ambitious objectives. So I'll stop here.
Thank you very much.
Over to our next speaker. Thank you.
So, as I was just warned that we have just 10 minutes remaining, so I would like to give the floor to our panelist who is online. I hope, Jorge Alonso, you can hear us.
listen to me? Can you listen to me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can see you and we can hear you. Jorge, just as a kind warning, you will have less than maybe 5 minutes because we still have 2 more presentations and 10 minutes to go. So I would appreciate if you can wrap up in a few, maybe like 3 to 4 minutes, and I will give a warning towards the end. Okay, thank you, and
Okay.
you're more than welcome to have the floor.
Okay, thank you. I'll do my best. Good afternoon. I'm Jorge Alonso. I work at the Ministry for Ecological Transition and Demographic Challenge of Spain. I'm actually the focal point of the S.A.S Biodiversity Protocol or the Barcelona Convention. And here I'm going to present what are the main challenges facing the Spanish policy on MPA establishment and implementation. And so this first slide, as you all know, please can you put the first slide? Okay, that's right. As you all know, the international, regional, and national commitments on MPAs claim to achieve an effective protection of 30% by the year 2030. And so let me refer specifically to the state of the play of this issue in Spain, where we can find some successful stories, but also other pending challenges. It's fair enough to say that the advances in Spain in terms of marine protection have been quite significant. Just a decade ago, only 1% of marine waters were protected, and the situation changed in 2014 thanks to the results of a European co-finance project, the so-called In the Mares project, which permitted to improve the knowledge on marine environment and protect up to 8% of marine waters. And then in 2020, you know, the new momentum was given to the marine conservation with the adoption of the GBF, the post-2020 sub-bio, which has been presented today, or the European Union Biodiversity Strategy. And all these commitments were supported by Spain with a specific commitment to achieve the protection of 30% by the year 2030, with an intermediate objective of protecting 25% by the year 2025. So by the next year. And so thus, last December, a national legal act was approved with the declaration of 7 new sites that permitted to achieve the protection in Spain of 21%. So this means that we are on the way to achieve the target of 30%, but we cannot forget, as Carol said, that the agreed targets do not just refer to the quantitative figure of 30%, but they also refer to the quality of the MPAs, which need to be protected effectively. Otherwise, we will have paper packs. And that is where we can find the main weaknesses and challenges for Spain. So please, the second slide. An effective management of MPA implies 2 requisites, 2 conditions. The first one is to approve a management plan. This management plan is the tool that ensures that human activities that are happening on the sites are compatible with the conservation objectives. And the second condition is that when those management plans are approved, they have to be implemented. And for addressing both issues, in Spain, we are relying on 2 main principles. Science at the basis of all the decision making, and the second one is the participation of all relevant stakeholders. And regarding the need to have management plans, there's still a big room for improvement, since nowadays only 1/3 of the MPAs have currently a management plans, and so we have to work hard on this field. And those management plans should include clear conservation objectives and conservation measures. And science should be at the origin of both things. First, we have to rely on science to know on the interactions between pressures and impacts. And secondly, we have to rely on science also to identify the best solutions to address those impacts. And in addition to this point of science as the basis of decision making, we are supporting also the elaboration of management plans on this second pillar, the participative process, in which we are trying to allocate different fora with all relevant stakeholders, in which we are exchanging on the diagnosis of the different MPAs. and also exchanging with them on the needed solutions. And we believe that with this approach, the management plan that will be finally approved will be more informed. The regulations that will going to be drafted in this management plan will be better understood by stakeholders, and therefore the management plan as a whole will be much more respected. And the second condition to asseverate that effective management is happening is the implementation, the proper implementation of this management plan once they have been approved. And for that, what we need is, it has already been said, we need appropriate means and resources to first implement an ecological monitoring of natural features. This is fundamental to assess whether the conservation measures, the regulations are being affected.
Okay.
And the second thing is
Jorge, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Apologies to cut you, but may I ask you to wrap in half a minute? Because we have two more presentations. So yes, thank you.
Okay, I had already finished. Yeah, that was the second idea, the need to implement those management plans with systems to ensure surveillance and ecological monitoring. And that will be all, no? As a recapitulation, it's that we are working on the good way to achieve this quantitative target of 30%, but there's still a lot of work to do in terms of effective management. Thank you very much.
Well, we thank you. It's great to hear from the field. Apologies for the short time. So now I'm going to ask very quickly Asma and Carol to present maybe in 2 minutes, so I can give the floor to Puri and Joseph to finalize the panel. So Asma and Carol.
Yes, thank you so much. So, maybe as I mentioned in my introduction words, that this forum has started in 2012 under the leadership of the MedPAN and the SPARAC. We have met with several MPA managers and all the stakeholders, around maybe 200 persons in Turkey, and then and we have developed then the very first roadmap for MPAs that sets the objectives for the Aichi target then, the 10%. And then in 2016, we have met again in Tangier, Morocco, to update the roadmap, but also to have our networking event, the MPA Forum, the second edition of the MPA Forum. And there were, I think, around 300 participants on site, and we have reviewed and adapted according to what time not what time, but what are the actions needed in order to achieve the Aichi target then, that unfortunately we didn't achieve. But then we have a new target, so we don't get bored. So we have our third edition of the forum that was in the COVID time, in the 2020-2021, that was held in Monaco in 2021 with the participation of many people on site, but also online because it was the COVID era. And we have developed a new roadmap that was starting really from the ground to the top with concrete actions, because this roadmap is meant to be a living document that accompany and that help all the MPA stakeholders to reach the 30 by 30 also target. So this was also possible thanks to the contribution of our steering committee, which are our key members in the region, such as the ACOBAMS, the MedFund, Conservatoire du Littoral, etc., but also with the precious support of our donors, such as all the donors. And then we have all the relevant stakeholders that they were there, and it was developed through a very complete process. And then the floor is to Carol.
Thank you, Asma. So actually, the aim of this roadmap, as I indicate, is really to harness the forces and to involve all the relevant stakeholders, is to boost the implementation of the MPA policy commitment, to ensure the buy-in of the stakeholders, and to focus on priority action. So we want definitely to support all the ambitious objectives from the international to the European and, of course, the Mediterranean level. And to do so, actually, this roadmap is articulated around 6 strategic objectives and 32 recommendations. And as you can see with the title of the objective, we go through different types of issues we have to tackle, again, to support the effective management of marine protectees. This is dealing with improvement of policy of governance, supporting capacity and awareness, improving the enforcement implementation of this legislation, ensuring the funding, the necessary funds for the MPAs, developing the management of knowledge, because we need to monitor what is happening at sea, and then we want as well to address what we call cross-cutting issues, but not minor issues such as climate change. We know that our regions is a hotspot of climate change, but as well gender. We need to tackle the question of the gender management and governance in our region. So what I can say quickly is that since we want to make this roadmap a living document, we need all stakeholders to get on board. And to do that, we organize a call for commitments in order to get actually promotion of everyone's action, and to showcase how activities from municipalities, leadership from regions, activities from NGOs, activities from fishermen as well, or the tourism sectors can definitely contribute to the implementation of the roadmap. So we have developed a new platform to ease actually everyone to submit their commitment, and we are very happy to say that next May, we will launch a new call for commitments, so you are all warmly invited to actually submit your commitment. We don't ask you fund, we just ask you to actually specify what activity, what kind of activities you are already implementing can contribute to this or this strategic objective and this recommendation. So please come on board, address this new call for proposal, and we will make us very happy, and you will contribute definitely to the healthy dimension of our Mediterranean Sea. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And with the permission from the MedFund to steal 1 more minute from your roundtable, apologies, I would like to give the floor finally to Puri and Josep to mention about the partnership MedPAN and MedCities, and then we will be closing the roundtable in 2 minutes. So thank you.
Thank you. I think I will not make any remark, just one single. We cannot do anything of what we said without money. So that's why I invite you to pay attention to next round session, because it's about money, okay? And yeah, now in this philosophy, in this approach of cooperation, MedPAN, we are very glad that we will sign an agreement with MedCities, and Josep will talk a little bit. This is to increase the family, and it's not because both of us, we have the same family name. So it's not because we are canals, it's because MedPAN and MedCities really have a lot of things to do together for our Mediterranean. So I give the floor to Josep, and then we will sign the agreement.
Thank you very much. Please let me, I wouldn't forget myself if I did not say some words in my language, Catalan, in my country, Catalonia. So, bon dia a tothom, I em fa molt content d'estar aquí. I said that I'm glad to be here in this forum, and thank you very much. Yeah, this is a kind of wedding between canals and canals, no, but between MedCities and MedPAN. We've seen some very beautiful things, but also some things that we lack, or you lack, or all of us lack. No? I was worried about those diagrams, those circle diagrams. The most part were gray, no information about it. So, so this means a lack of political will, I would say. The lack of money, the lack of resources, the lack of information is the lack of political will. And this is one of the things that we can do. We can, and I would like to do, among our members. We are 80 municipalities and union of municipalities from the whole Mediterranean region, mainly from the south and the east, but also from the north. And I think we can raise awareness among our mayors, among our political staff and technical staff. It's very important. I'm truly committed to that, because I've been a mayor and I am a biologist, so I'm the worst combination possible. So I think it's very important that we raise commitment, we raise awareness among our political leaders, and they can also, if they are aware, they can also push to the state or national representatives to put efforts, to put resources in the marine protected areas. Let's work together. I think we can do it, and for me it's something that it's very natural to conclude and to coincide these two institutions to work together, different spheres, different levels, but for the same goal. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much to all the panelists and for all the attendees as well. So now I'm finally giving the floor to the second roundtable. So thank you, everyone.
To have you here on the occasion of this other dance roundtable on the MedFund, an innovative financial mechanism supporting the global biodiversity framework, and to have with us the possibility to have the Mediterranean organizers of the fund itself, as well as to have the opportunity to exchange experiences, capitalize on the success of the fund itself, and explore the opportunity to upscale, capitalize, and extend actually similar initiatives to other regional seas and oceans. I'd like also to mention that the MedFund has been labeled by the UFM 2019. That means that 43 Euro-Mediterranean countries have given the green light to have the fund as a full part of the regional agenda, of the regional Mediterranean agenda. I'd like also to add that Prince Albert will be joining us for the session. So on those important, let's say, remarks and stand, I'd like to give the floor to our speakers and invite them to the floor. Let me indeed invite Ms. Anne-Marie Bois-Bouvier, Ambassador and Permanent Delegate to the UNESCO. Many thanks for joining us for this session. Please take the floor. As well, I'd like to invite Ms. Olivier Venden, Vice President and CEO of the Prince Albert II Foundation. Furthermore, Andrew Hume, Coordinator of the International Waters Focal Area of the GF, the Global Environment Facility. Thank you for being with us. Again, our colleague Asma Kariji, Program Officer at SPARAC, so the Regional Activity Centers of the UNEMAP, the Specially Protected Areas, as well as Puri Canals, indeed the President of the MedPAN network. Puri, you are with us for this round two, as well as Mr. Renaud Romain, Executive Director of the MedFund. So, colleagues, it's a great pleasure to have you on the occasion of this roundtable. As we said, time is precious, it's very dense, and without further ado, let me start with the first, let's say, introduction to the roundtable itself. So maybe I can give the floor to Ms. Kariji and to Ms. Puri Canals to link with the previous session and to recap and rope up in a certain way the key figures that have been highlighted during the previous roundtable that will remain as important basis.
Thank you so much, Alessandra.
Please.
I think I won't take long because I think we are the same participants here, so I think no need to really spend much time on that, just to recall that in the Mediterranean, and this map was generated, something that I can maybe specify, this map was generated thanks to the data that both MedPAN and SPARAC we have collected from the MPA managers, and then we have validated it by our SPABID focal points of the Barcelona Convention. And those data, they are in the MapAmed. The MapAmed is the database on marine protected areas in the Mediterranean, and this is a very key action that we are really engaged to do together, together MedPAN and SPARA, because it really shows from the field, as always, to the top level, that what we have now and what we should do. In 2020, we only have 8.33% of the Mediterranean protected and only 0.0% of the sea under strict protection. All the MPAs, as already mentioned before, are located in the north, and only 18% of those MPAs, they have really effectively managed their areas with the implementation of their management plans. So it's still, as my colleague Carol said, it's still really a room to further put the efforts there, because we have some time left to achieve our targets, but let's not keep in mind not only the target, but really to keep in mind that we should preserve this region, because otherwise we don't have else where to go for our generation and for next generation and for our species. And then I think not only about the card.
I think the card is nice, the map. But the map might hold anything we want to put in. So it may be just an artistic map, and it will be beautiful. Thousands of beautiful maps in the world. But the map is not the territory. This is a very known statement. It's nothing new. It's not the territory, it's not the water. And what is important is what happens in the water. But obviously what happens in the water has to be captured by your perception. And it's this interface between the ecological reality and the human perception that the challenge is. If we are not able to change the perception, we will never change the behavior. And this will continue creating troubles and maybe beautiful maps, but not a beautiful reality. And I think this is what this session is about, is what kind of tools can we mobilize together to allow a change in the perception in our society. What kind of tools we need? We need economical tools, we need science tools, we need other kinds of social tools to really make a change and make that this map not only becomes real in the water, but really covers 30% as a first step. But the aim is to protect the whole Mediterranean, not to forget the 70% that is out of the target. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Puri, and thank you very much, Asma. Very important points. Indeed, we are actually exploring a very important tool. Sustainable financing is at the core, as it was said, of our activities, and it would be very important indeed to connect a bit with the genesis and the history of the MedFund. So, Ambassador, the floor is yours, and we look forward to hear on the political impetus that was behind this important tool.
Thank you for giving me the floor. So yes, I'm here to give you a rapid presentation of the genesis and history of the MedFund initiative. As we all have heard, all the previous speakers, it is really important to create marine protected areas in the Mediterranean Sea, but also it's really important to efficiently and effectively run them. And as we gather here to address these pressing issues facing our marine environment, we have to reflect on the importance of shared management in safeguarding our common heritage and securing our collective future, especially in Mare Nostrum. We just have heard from the last speakers that some marine protected areas were indeed created, but only protected on paper. We strongly believe that MPAs with high level of protection without paper park syndrome are the best tools to ensure the future generation, to continue to benefit from the ocean resources and services they provide. For all these reasons, in 2013, the political impetus was given by His Serene Highness, the Prince Albert II. It promoted the decision to create a trust fund. The objective aims to promote and develop the network of marine protected areas in our shared sea, the Mediterranean. This initiative came up in international context, as you may remember, the Global Framework for Biodiversity with Aichi targets that have just been adopted in 2010. One of them was dedicated to the establishment of marine protected areas. It was the Target 11. As you may remember, the ambitious targets at that time were far from being achieved, and we've seen that. And in particular in Target 11 for the Mediterranean Sea. We have some, and we're happy about that, we can be proud of, such as the Pelagos Sanctuary, some designated areas that are the first protected area that goes beyond national territories, but that was very few of them. To add to the momentum, Monaco decided to join forces with other countries to further develop cooperation in order to improve the management effectiveness of Mediterranean MPAs. And as such, France, Monaco, Tunisia, and the Prince Albert II Foundation launched in 2015 the MedFund. It is important to underline it also received from the beginning a political support of fervent allies from riparian countries in the framework of UNEP MAP, Barcelone Convention system, and the Union for Mediterranean. The Environment Flagship Initiative is based in the Principality of Monaco, as you may know. It allows the financing of several actions in our sea to ensure the protection of marine biodiversity and the sustainable development in marine and coastal areas, with a special focus aimed particularly at East and South countries. The government of Monaco was the first in 2016 to invest in this initiative. This first step was a contribution of 500,000 euros that helped also mobilize other funding sources. As I understand, the next speaker will explain, the MedFund has surpassed its target to support 7,000 kilometers squared of MPAs by 2025. But the goal, I think, is to double the number of MPAs by 2030. Well, may I say in conclusion that marine protected areas go beyond conserving land. They embodied a new development model that harmonized human progress with nature conservation, offering continuity and also promising prospect for future generation. This underscores the critical importance of collective efforts, as you've all said, facilitated by robust financial tools like the MedFund to safeguard and shared environment for years to come. Thank you.
Many thanks actually for detailing all the principles that were the basis of this very important fund. And let me also give the floor to Mr. Vanden to complement the section related to the political part, to the political background of this fund before we move to the operational one. Please, the floor.
Thank you very much, and I would like to say thank you to our ambassador for this very clear presentation of the MedFund, the strategy and the policy behind. If I may, I would just strengthen the idea behind the MedFund from the foundation perspective. In a nutshell, the foundation at that time was almost 10 years old, and we built a very strong credibility on ocean conservation. We've been funded for almost a decade at that time. A lot of MPAs, so supporting their management and their assessment and their monitoring around the world. But to summarize, there was clearly a drop in the ocean. So we were thinking that regional approaches in terms of financing and monitoring was probably a good idea to explore. And we were having this conversation last week. Actually, you don't have a lot of regional funds around the globe. That's counterintuitive, but you don't. There are good examples in the Caribbean, good examples in Latin America with the Mare Fund, but obviously nothing at that time in the Med, in such an important hotspot of biodiversity. So that's how we started reflecting on such a possibility. I should also add that the foundation has always been working around science. We are strong believers that science is right, we need more data, even though I'm a bit more skeptical on that today. I think we have the data. We have to enforce the data and work and try and assess and be transparent on results. If we fail, fine. We can't wait for the perfect solution to exist. That's my real takeaway today. We can't wait for a perfect solution to be deployed. So we have to try. If we fail, we have to admit it, and that's probably the hardest part, and then try something else. So in the Med, that's how it began, with a very strong political commitment, of course, with 3 main states around, well, Monaco, Tunisia, and France. But we also embarked, because this is something we tend to do quite often in our program, public and private funding. So embarked also other foundations, other institutions, and then multilateral funding, which is a proof of concept, I would say, when you reach that level. The battle is not won at this stage. We have to admit it. You know, the MedFund is only a baby. We can fine-tune the model. It's a sink fund, and therefore a sink fund, very clearly, you need a lot of capital to generate significant interest to fund on the ground your projects, your program. So still a long way to go. Let's hope for the MedFund to reach €1 billion soon, because that's probably the reality of the target we should aim for if we want not to reach the 30 by 30, because this is so ambitious, so bold, given the situation where we are and when we rate the map, but at least to be bold in the effectiveness of the target we will reach in 2030. So we have identified a financial mechanism that can be working. We need more money to do that, but I will probably come back later to that. I think technology today can be a strong ally as well to make the costs reduce when it comes to monitoring. I was thinking of nanosatellites. I'm also thinking about drones. This is usually a fraction of the cost of sending a vessel at sea to monitor. So artificial intelligence can also be part of the game, and environmental DNA can be also a good proof of concept of the effectiveness of an MPA. So that's what was the idea behind the MedFund from our perspective.
Many thanks, very inspiring indeed. And we now move actually from all these very important principles that have been translated into a fund, indeed to the operational dimension of the fund itself. So I'd like actually to invite our colleague from the GEF, Mr. Andrew Doom, to take the floor and let us know how the GEF has been following all these developments and support all these developments. Also along the lines of the fact that, of course, you are looking at other funds in other regions of the world, and this is very important pioneering exercise that has been carried out and is being carried out at the Mediterranean level, where indeed over the past years a lot of resources have been pulled together at all levels, human, technical, financial, and indeed the Mediterranean has become an inspiration for others worldwide on these and many other topics. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and apologies, I'm going to read from some notes. It's been a long weekend just here. My name is Andrew Hume. I coordinate the International Waters Focal Area at the GEF Secretariat. I won't go into detail of the GEF, but I'll be around later if you are not familiar with the GEF. Essentially, we serve as a financial mechanism to most of the multilateral environmental agreements that exist, the Climate Change Convention, the CBD, and others. But we also work outside of that context with international waters, essentially trying to support countries working together around shared resources management, both in the marine and ocean, but also in the freshwater and upstream areas, and especially in the source to sea, that connectivity between. Just to give a little bit of context from our perspective, we've been around since 1992, so for over 30 years. And just within the international waters funding window of the GEF, we've funded over 20 projects in the Mediterranean with 14 GEF recipient countries, so again, mostly from the east and the south, with over $138 million and leveraging an additional $2 billion in co-financing. We work through a partnership in most of the what we call GEF agencies, and this includes with the Med projects, working with the World Bank, UNEP, EBRD, FAO, and most recently with Conservation International. We also were very happy to be hosted here in 2011 for one of our International Waters conferences, which I'll explain about a little bit later. And most recently, we have our most recent investment, $5 million for the Build Back a Blue and Stronger Mediterranean in the post-COVID era, which is being implemented by Conservation International, but is being executed by MedPAN and MedFund. So we're very excited about that and excited to be here. But similarly, the GEF has a long history supporting countries all over the world in these conservation trust funds, both within government and outside of government. And it really builds on this principle of country ownership. It's a major part and embedded within our own GEF project cycle. So countries have the full autonomy in designing these, and there is no prescriptive model in how we approach this. It really flexes depending on the needs of the country, as well as making the partnership and matching with the expertise of the GEF agency partnership that we have. We have over 18 GEF agencies, which are these vetted organizations that work on our behalf to be implementing the funding. Within international waters, one of the things that's important to understand is, and it's really about how we operationalize this political support into action on the ground, and it was mentioned earlier by my colleague from UNEP over here, is around this idea of a transboundary diagnostic assessment and a strategic action program. What that really means in quite simple terms is this idea of essentially fostering an atmosphere of cooperation among countries towards developing a shared understanding of the transboundary issues and developing a strategy, in this case the S.A.S bio, that informs how to implement that over time. That S.A.S, the strategic program, is politically endorsed, so it's something that we want to see endorsed at the highest ministerial level to show that political ownership that we were talking about earlier. One of the things that we're recognizing in our current GEF programming, and this came out of a recent evaluation of our efforts, is that TDSAP process has been missing that component on sustainable financing. So that is something that we're hoping to become much more instrumental in designing in that earlier stages as we develop the SAP, so that it's thought of from the very beginning. It's not something that we think about later, oh, now we need the money. It's part of the long-term view and the long-term plan. I'll just quickly wrap up noting, because we've talked about the Global Biodiversity Framework, so the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework that was approved at COP15, that is in partner with the GEF-hosted Global Biodiversity Framework Fund, so that is actually an additional set of funding that will become available to countries, GEF recipient countries. In fact, it's just become operational, so the funding is now available, and that operates. We're currently at a national level, but we are hoping to see regional projects coming soon. And we look, of course, we know the 30 by 30 targets under targets 2 and 3, but there are other targets around the conservation financing that are important to look at, especially target 19, mobilizing finance, as well as targets 20 and 21 on capacity building and knowledge transfer. And I'll just put in one last note here that in addition to all the other conventions that the GEF supports, most recently the GEF has been identified to serve as part of the financial mechanism for the biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction agreements of the High Seas Treaty, although that's not the right terminology for it. But in the future, there should be opportunities, assuming the agreement comes into force and that the eventual COP meets on decision-making processes for supporting protected areas in the high seas and the financing around that. So I'll stop there in the interest of time, but hopefully that's some useful context. Thank you.
Definitely very interesting, and thank you very much actually for sketching out all these opportunities and combination also for the future in terms of indeed sustainable financing. So we will now move actually to Romain. I mean, Romain, you have the chance now to present in a very brief presentation, to give us an overview basically of where we stand with the MedFund, and actually show the way to having by now 9 Mediterranean countries supported. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alessandra. Good afternoon, everyone. So following the commitment from our members and the political will from our founding countries, so we developed this MedFund to support the day-to-day operational cost of marine protected areas, meaning that we fund basically all the activities like surveillance enforcement, we talked about that in the previous panel, the regular ecological monitoring, the awareness raising, but also the active governance that brings stakeholders around the Mediterranean Sea, but also around each marine protected areas to really implement their management plan. So in a nutshell, what I sometimes say is that we turn paper parks into effective marine protected areas for long-term conservation. So where do we stand now? Now we support 20 marine protected areas across the Mediterranean region, as you can see on the map here. So we are working in Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Lebanon, Turkey, Albania, Montenegro, Croatia, and we will start a new support in Greece. Next week, we will sign a new funding agreement on the occasion of the conference Our Ocean to be organized in Athens. So altogether, these 20 marine protected areas, they represent more than 9,000 square kilometers of coastal and marine areas and more than 6 million euros of commitment. What I want to mention also here is that we have dedicated within the MedFund a funding window which is dedicated to support highly and fully marine protected areas. So basically the 0.04% of marine protected areas that Asma you mentioned in the introduction, because we need more fully and highly protected areas in the Med, because they do deliver the most ecological benefits. We couldn't do all this without, I would say, building a strong but let's say a sustainable alliance between funders. You mentioned that, Olivier, before, and we were proud to have around the table of the MedFund institutional partners, but also partners coming from the philanthropies, such as the Prince Albert II of Monaco Foundation, the Pubert Harley, or the Mava Foundation. And of course, we are here in Spain, so I have to underline also the support that we receive from the government of Spain. That's it in a nutshell, and can share the floor with my colleague.
Thank you, Roman. Yes, now it's okay. No, it's just obviously there is a dimension of funding and mobilizing those funds for specific objectives, but then there's a technical dimension on the application of those funds. I'm going to just summarize what are the key elements on the approach of the MedFund for providing those funds. First element to stress is science. So all the applications that we receive are analyzed by a scientific committee that really identifies the strong basis of those proposals in terms of the available science today. So this is an important aspect, and also the way we monitor the implementation to really be sure that this money has served to the proposal it was approved. Next slide. Please. Another element is obviously on management. This is the key word that appears from the very beginning when Fanny opened the session today, and several moments in the map. Management is crucial. The aim of the MedFund is to stabilize, to make durable, sustainable the management of the MPAs. So how we can make it sustainable? So there are two key elements. First is that it's put in the right legal framework in the country where this MPA is. So we need to really contribute to the country objectives and the country commitments. So this is the framework. And then we need to be careful in the implementation. And in this implementation, we really like to promote co-management, participation of the civil society around the MPA and the key institutions that really operate in close relationship and in agreement with the governments. So, and the last element in the last slide is empowerment. So if we want that the management process is sustainable in the long term, we need to empower people. So this requires the recognition of individuals, NGOs, communities, especially a special focus on gender balance and gender involvement of women in those areas. And we want to empower this civil society because this is the only way to create a positive feedback to the governments to perpetuate this model even when there will be no more money from the MedFund or other donors. So I think these three axes are very important to understand how the MedPAN operates. Thanks.
Many thanks to both of you, for the overview of actions that indeed were carried out so far on the MedFund, as well as to these three concepts and words of sustainable funding, co-management, and empowerment, which are indeed at the base of all the actions that the fund plays around. Now, we spoke of the present, we spoke of the past, let's talk of the future. So we have also a quite dense time slot, just 10 minutes left before closing the round table and having the intervention from Prince Albert. So I will now give the floor to each of you. Very brief targeted intervention on your vision on the future, the years to come, 25, 20, 30, which are indeed aligned with also the international and global convention. So, Asma, you would like to start with?
Yes, maybe to recall what we have mentioned before with Carole from MedPAN, the roadmap that was developed in the Mediterranean, that was really developed from the people on the field, from the managers themselves, from the researchers, from all the community that they were really engaged, and also they are worried a little bit about the future of the Mediterranean, but everyone really matters, and all together we can do something. So no matter what everyone can do, we can do something together when we join forces. So the roadmap has the objectives clear, the actions, and also recommendations. It's a tool that facilitates where we can go, because it is an agreed document it is an agreed document at the community, MPA community, and it is also a tool to implement other commitments and engagements made by the governments, such as at the Barcelone Convention, for example, the SAB-BIO and the MCPA and OECM strategy. So no matter where we start, I think we all do matter, and every action could be also considered in order to achieve the CBD target 30 by 30, but I would say in order to preserve our dear Mediterranean. Thank you.
Many thanks, Asma. It's very important to have all the action contributing to the same objective, in a coordinated manner. Puri?
Next slide. Yeah. I want to say something. So if you look at this picture or many documents, you see 30 by 30. 30 by 30 may be the title of a very nice film. Yeah, it's attractive. So see a title, a film, you say, okay, I go to the cinema to see the film. But then maybe before you decide to look at the trailer. And the trailer, yeah, this is the target 3. It explains what we want to do, with which objectives. But then there is the film, and sometimes you see the film and you leave the cinema very happy, and sometimes not at all. You are really in the worst shape that before entering to see the film. But here the good news is that the film is still to be made, and it's in our hands. And if this film will really respond to this nice title, if we really operate cooperatively, if we join forces, we put the right resources, with the right ideas, with the right stars of the film, but also extras. Extras are very important. And the producer, and the people that makes the scenarios, and that designs the text. We need everyone, so this is about everyone business. So I just want to invite you to continue these discussions and contribute to this beautiful film we will make together. Thank you.
Thank you. We need the beautiful film. So, so thank you for these inspiring words. Roman.
Yeah, so I guess that the future, as Puri mentioned, is really, let's say, challenging. I hope and will be part of this movie, but not the only one. I think so. So far, we have achieved, and I think the ambassadors mentioned that we have already reached our objectives that have been set by the countries. So we were like turning this MedFund adventure into success so far. So we could have failed. Thank you, Olivier, but we didn't. And now we need to scale up. So basically, what we need first, I guess, and that will be done within this year, we are building and designing our new strategy, that we have two main objectives. One will be really just to make sure that we maintain our achievements, because we have achieved a lot in those 20 marine protected areas. You know, it takes a few days, a few weeks to destroy natural habitats, but it takes years to really restore the biodiversity and the natural ecosystems. So in some marine protected areas, we succeed in that. So we have first to maintain those achievements, and second, as mentioned also by the ambassador, is to scale up and to really support more marine protected areas in the next 5 years, and to support also more countries. So we are now in the phase where we're drafting with all the actors and producers and scenarists of this film, the new strategy for the MedFund, and it will be launched at the next UNOC conference in Nice next year.
Thank you so much. And I'd like maybe also to mention that at the beginning, it seems that the criteria for the fund were quite exigent, and they were, but it was the only way to put it on track in the right way. So this is also a very important element to understand, because of course it takes time, but it's the only way indeed to put it on the right track. Andrew, how do you see actually the opportunities for partnership and exchange with other regional seas in the future indeed?
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure I can speak on behalf of my Jeff colleagues saying that we would not like to star in this film, but we'd be very happy to produce it. So this is an area we fully stand behind, and it's 30 by 30. We've been an advocate for a long time. We're partners of HAC, High Ambition Coalition, and many other parts. And just to keep it very brief, the Jeff has many different ways in which we stand behind scaling up, and we certainly see the Med as it's been a long investment. We've been along with the ride for over 30 years, and we will certainly be there looking into the future. There's no question about that. I do, and we've talked about this a little bit, about taking advantage of some of our knowledge and communities of practice that we've facilitated. We have IW Learn, which is within the International Waters Focal Area. It's actually hosted by UNESCO, and it's a really great, vibrant community to take lessons learned across all the different projects around the globe that we fund. So that's one opportunity. We also have what we call what I call rapid assistance support. I noticed a Critical Ecosystem Partnership Fund that's Jeff supported through Conservation National. The Blue Nature Alliance is another example, as well as Enduring Earth. These are examples of funds that were basically pre-allocated from the Jeff to a partnership that then regrants those quickly, and it allows funding to meet an opportunity at a smaller scale that can be scaled up to a larger Jeff investment down the road. So these are incredibly important opportunities that we should be taking advantage of. And I know there's already discussions going on as well as already being used. So that's fantastic to see. I think really looking down the road for us, we're in the middle of a 4-year strategy, what we call Jeff 8, but our next strategy negotiations start at the end of this year. So that will become Jeff 9. We certainly look forward to receiving input from all the different channels that are out there for that, but it's certainly going to be a priority. And the oceans will be one of the top things that we look at, not only because it's one of the most important global issues, but also because our CEO is a strong advocate in terms of ocean conservation. As I mentioned before, just to close out, we do have the Global Biodiversity Framework Fund, which is now operational. That is funding from every country available to address many of the biodiversity targets, like Target 3 on 30 by 30. And then, as I said before, looking at other things that are coming online, like the BB&J agreement, and potentially that entering into force next year, using the UN Ocean Conference as an opportunity to really put countries on the spot to make commitments and really see those through. And other things like the plastics treaty that's being negotiated. So there's a lot of, I think, excitement and opportunities, and really, being optimistic about looking at the next 30 years, or really the next 10 years, but looking much further too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, as you mentioned, oceans have raised and they're in the top international agenda by now. We see all these events indeed that are happening as a result of the tension that was created around it. and indeed important conventions and agreements that are going to be signed, that the BNJ, indeed, the plastic pollution one. So we have a lot, still in the basket to go. So I'll now like to give you the floor, Mr. Van Den, also for your remarks on the gateway to our ocean.
Sure. So if you keep the metaphor of the cinema or theater, I would just say it's important to show a good movie, but who is in the audience? And I think we don't focus enough on who is our audience. And thank you all for joining, but I think we are all convinced about what we've just said, and we share the same views, and we have the same mindset. So we are wrong. We need to talk to the other side of the world, or the other part, the main stakeholders. And that's back to the idea of the MedFund. We need to embark the real big stakeholders, the finance, the private sector, the industries, the companies, the reluctant ones. Because they are the one polluting, they are the one bringing the solutions as well, and they're the one bringing the finance. So the audience is key, and we tend to forget that too often. So the hope is next year, the UN Ocean Conference, every 4 years in general, but that will happen in the Med, so it's Nice and Monaco. And under the request of President Macron, Monaco will host a Blue Economy and Finance Forum as a prelude to the UN Ocean Conference, so that will be June 7th and 8th. From what we understand, being part of the conversation with the French authorities and Costa Rica, for once, this conference might be something a bit different. So instead of pledging, of announcing more and more MPAs, of announcing more and more commitments, no, it will be a question of accelerating solutions that the steering committee and the partners would have agreed on beforehand. And I quite like that idea. Is instead of coming to a conference with random projects, we all admit that, well, maybe you have 10 to 20 projects that are worth scaling up to really have an impact by 2030. So that's the whole spirit. And the Blue Economy Forum, Blue Economy and Finance Forum in Monaco will be all about what we've just said, bringing in the same room people that have no clue. And we have just launched a blended finance mechanism with the Global Fund for Coral Reef. We have also launched a private equity fund. And I can tell you, each time we talk about the ocean and blue economy, investors don't understand you. They quite understand the climate change problem, the green tech, green transition, but the blue economy, they don't get it. However, it's the fastest growing economy today. The blue economy is the fastest part of the global economy. We need to just reconcile one big thing, that's my final comment. Ecology is still not a part of the real economy. Every actor considers it to be separate. And my best argument in favor of that is negative externalities. Pollution is an externality, so it's never considered into the price of the product, and that might be key. So we will welcome you big time next year in Monaco for that, but please also pass on the word to have the industries and the multilateral funders join us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think you pointed out also something very important, is also project-to-process relation, which is indeed very important, not just a sequence of projects, but projects that feed the processes, which is indeed the very important change we are having also in the mind-setting at Mediterranean level. It's very important indeed to involve other stakeholders, not necessarily easy, but indeed it's something that we have all very clear in our mind. And to also tap maybe on what you just said, very importantly, in 2015 and again in 2021, the Euro-Mediterranean countries, the 43 UFM countries, have been adopting a specific ministerial declaration on sustainable blue economy. So this goes along what you said and what we said altogether, the importance of the ocean, of a sustainable economy, especially for this region of the world, because indeed of the geography we have. Let me now pass the floor to the ambassador again, so for these concluding remarks on the future of the MedFund initiative. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. But I think that most of my colleagues here have already said a lot of what we all would love to see. And what I can just say is make the promotion of MedFund. And investing in it is not merely a financial decision, it's an investment into the future of the Mediterranean Sea, into the planet, into our future. So pretty much what you've said. I hope that everything we can join forces to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And while we are waiting, actually, for Prince to join us, maybe I can give you back, Roman, a few words on the fund itself, the very next step you plan, and the strategy that it's under shape, and how we can all contribute to it.
Thank you, Alessandra. Yes, maybe I can complement with giving you maybe some more detail about the, let's say, the backstage of the MedFund, how it operates and how we use and we channel the funds toward the grantees. So the MedFund is indeed a conservation trust fund, and we have 4 different sources of revenue. One is coming from an endowment fund, meaning that we invest a substantial amount of funding into the financial markets, following responsible investment policies, and we are using the interest generated by those investments to allow grant to the marine protected areas. So this is an important mechanism because this is sustainable on one hand, and because you don't touch the initial capital, and on the second hand, following a responsible investment policy, we do invest only in green and blue economy. So basically, it's double win for our partners, is that we support MPA, but also we support the blue economy and green economy initiatives. And then we have another, let's say, source of revenue, which is a sinking fund, where we actually do the same kind of process. So following an investment policy, we invest this capital, but each year we are using the interest rates and part of this capital until the end of the fund. That's why it's a sinking fund, the second one. Then we have a third one, which is very interesting. It's called the renewable fund. It relies on a network of aquariums, and those across the Mediterranean region would dedicate part of the entrance fees of the visitors to the MedFund. And we have here the Institut Oceanographique de Monaco here with us, with leading this network of aquariums. And this is very interesting because at the same time it raised funding, but also it raised awareness amongst visitors. And then we have the fourth one. It's more classic. It's sources coming from projects. But mainly we rely on those 3 main mechanisms, so the endowment, the revolving fund, and the sinking fund. So depending on the financial markets, because we are following an investment policy, so we do not invest in weapons. So in those days, this is very, very high interest when you invest into weapons. We don't. So depending on the time of the year, sometimes you just take the money from one window or the other one, depending on the financial markets. And we set up an investment committee to do so, because I'm not a financial expert, but we have a financial committee with high-level experts. They give their times and their expertise, because it's a pro bono expertise, and they give advice, and we have a manager of our assets also who is following this. So this is a little bit of information of the
this is absolutely very interesting, and actually all what has happened over the past year, so namely, a dedicated taxonomy to sustainable funding, indeed the concept of impact finance has been contributing a lot, to support these type of initiatives. So what was the trend overall of the fund over the past years since it was set up? even if you are not the financial expert, how was the fund actually doing over the past years? Because as you said, there are ups and downs, political situation, financial crisis.
Yeah, we had at first downs and downs before reaching the ups, because we started our investment policy at the COVID period. So that was not the best context, you know, to really foresee financial returns, because we didn't know at that time what was happening. So that was kind of worrying for our investment committee. And then we had also the inflation, the crisis in Ukraine, then the war in the Middle East. So every time there's a new challenge, you know, as you can imagine. But investing in green and blue products on the medium run and the long run, this is something more secure, because those companies are already taking into consideration not only the environmental context, but also all the socio-economic context and the financial context of the markets in the world. So last year we did plus 6% for the endowment fund, so that was quite good. The previous year we did -3, which was really good, because all the markets were like -10, so that was not so bad. So that's why we have these three sources of revenue, because depends on the markets and depends also on the international context, and this you cannot really tell in advance. So we have to be flexible, a little bit like MPA managers, right? They have to be flexible and to adapt themselves to the context.
Thank you very much, Romain. Puri, you also mentioned the importance of the science. The importance of the science at the core of the fund itself. And we will have actually a dedicated week, the Mediterranean Green Week, that the UFM is organizing on the 14th and 16th of May in Istanbul. And indeed, all these elements of green financing, on policy science, will be at the core of these 3 days, where we will have the policy dialogue together with thematic workshops being combined in order to address this issue. Will be a very important opportunity for the MedFund itself to be presented. Your Highness, we are very honored with the grace of your presence, and we had a very fruitful session. Thank you very much to all the speakers. So I will now close this very dense round table. Thank you very much for being with us, and give the floor to Your Highness Prince Albert. Please, the floor is yours.
Well, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I apologize for not being able to be here for the last few minutes of your session, but I'm sure it was fantastic, and mere fact that we saw that this is not important. What was before this slide was important, the 30 by 30. So thank you for your presence and for your participation. I think what has brought us here today is absolutely vital and so important for the future of our ocean and what that entails. It is these topics related to the preservation of marine areas that have mobilized the MedFund for almost 10 years, and which prompt us to take action with our public, philanthropic, and private sector partners. They concern the Mediterranean, of course, its fragile and endangered ecosystems, and the marine protected areas which we work with support and help to fund in order to protect our ocean more, and our Mediterranean specifically more effectively. More generally, however, these issues concern the development of this type of management of marine ecosystems. Through marine protected areas, we promote, expand, and improve more sustainable use of marine resources as they meet the needs of both nature and the communities that live alongside them. Finally, and behind all of that, what has brought us here is the creation of a sustainable economic model. A model that combines innovative financing mechanisms and the everyday realities of the ecosystems concerned, as well as the economies and societies of which they are part. Consequently, the Mediterranean issues on which we have focused have a broad resonance, and I believe that the development of the MedFund has a significance beyond the marine areas that it supports. Because the various challenges we face are not unique to our region, even though there is a particular high concentration here, these challenges, I believe, are faced by all those working to establish and develop marine protected areas all around the world. First and foremost, the context is politically sensitive, socially complex, and ecologically fragile. A context undoubtedly more pronounced in the Mediterranean than anywhere else in the world, but inherent to all ecosystems subject to a strong human pressure. Then there is the reality of a sea that has 8% of its surface currently protected, while our goal is to reach a ratio of at least 30% by 2030. Although we have to admit this will be particularly difficult to achieve in the Mediterranean. Furthermore, we have to be aware of the great diversity of protection levels and the fact that the benefits in terms of preservation and the economic impact are directly proportionate to this level. Scientists have demonstrated that the stronger the protection, the greater the benefits for the ecosystems and for economic activities that are generated therefrom. That is why I'm proud that the success of the strong window of protection we created a few years ago with the Mava Foundation and the Pew and Vertarelli Foundations have been in effect. Then there is the diversity of marine areas covered by the MedFund, which has allowed us to multiply experiences for the last 10 years. This diversity of situations, the choices, and the management tools is now an asset that enables us to better respond to the wide range of issues faced by marine stewards across the globe. And it enables us to identify and come up with the best solutions that are adapted to complex environments by taking into account various different constraints. Finally, we've been able to build economic realities that are particularly enriching in relation to one of the greatest challenges of our era, to help create a blue economy capable to respond to the global needs of all of us, of humanity, to maintain a balance with the local communities and for the local communities, and to guarantee the protection of our marine environment. For all these reasons, the MedFund is now a very important tool, a laboratory that must continue to invent, to progress, and to prove its effectiveness. Today's discussions, I was told, have shown that thanks to the commitment and involvement of our teams and partners, there is much to be hopeful for in these regards. And I'd like to thank them, as well as all those who accepted our invitation to contribute to the success of this initiative through these discussions. So I thank you very much.
Excellencies, colleagues, with this we close this beautiful afternoon session, very dense. We have a lot of work ahead. We have a dense week here in Barcelona on the occasion of the Ocean Decade, next week on the occasion of the Ocean Summit in Athens, as well as a long way to next year in Nice. So thank you very much for all your contribution, participation, ideas, debates, proposals. We will work on all that and look forward to meet you in all these other occasions in the very next future. Thank you again. Thanks.